Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode If You Could Hide to Kolob podcast. My name's Daniel. This is my brother Clive.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are here now, Daniel. We're in Exodus now, second book of Moses, as people say. So, yeah, I mean, we're powering through the Old Testament.
That we are. So, Clive, I think you got the quote for us. Why don't you kick us off? Let's get into the quote, and then we can get straight into a few bits and pieces about Moses.
Okay, so this is President Oaks. I was thinking about President Oaks recently in church, where we're talking about they were talking about how every generation, the prophet always says that this is the generation to prepare for Christ. But President Oaks really emphasized it most recently, quoting President Nelson. But this is something that he talks about with Revelation and the importance of our preparations and our revelations. It says, a majority of revelations which are given to the children of God come when they are acting, not when they are relaxing in their habitations, waiting for the Lord to tell them the first steps they should make. So whether it is time to prepare to meet God or not, we should all be acting and all preparing anyway, because we never know what the Lord has in store for us.
Awesome. Okay. All right, let's kick off. So we're starting with Exodus 1. We're going to Exodus chapter 6 today. Let's see if we can get it all into one episode, but let's see how we go. And we start with the end. We start with the end of the tribes, the sons or the lineage of Israel. We learn in chapter 6 about Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. We hopefully have implored you enough to watch the play. If you haven't, there is still time. But in chapter 1, in verse 6, it tells us that Joseph died, and all his brethren and all that generation. So this is a moment from now until the requirement of Moses. And Clive, in the book The 3,000 Years, Skousen tells us that it's about 64 years from the time that Moses died that Joseph died to when Moses was born. So everything we're going to talk about in the next few verses is a result of what is happening over these 64 years. And we get a little bit of an insight into that if we start looking at the text. And before I go into that, I must say, to understand these next few verses that I'm going to read, it's important to at least have a basic knowledge of how Egypt became so full. The population really grew quite hard. And we learn even just in ourselves that Israel, with Jacob, all his sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, etc., Naphtali, Gad, they all came from their land and moved into Egypt. So these are all people who are foreign moving into Egypt. You will remember that Egypt would have attracted a lot of people because Joseph filled the storehouses in those first 7 years. And in the second 7 years, he was able to distribute the wealth, the food wealth. He was able to distribute that food wealth throughout the people, throughout the land of Egypt. So we have some record of people moving into Egypt. And so this is what's happening as more and more people who are non-Egyptian are moving into Egypt. And so I'll read a couple of verses here. I'll read 8, 9, and 10. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. So Joseph died decades before this king. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So the king says to all of his people, these foreigners have moved into our country. These foreign influences with their foreignness are in our land, and we think that if an enemy came, the enemy could say, hey, Israelites, you guys are living in Egypt. You're not really Egyptians, will you join us, and will you help us overthrow the Egyptians, and we will make you rulers, and therefore we will rule the land. You can become the status of the Egyptians instead of the somewhat second-class citizens that you are now. And this is really the bookend of the story of Moses. It's this king's action to his people that says we now need to bring in a policy, a foreign policy, that we need to put the shackles on these other people who are living within our land because we are scared. Maybe they haven't integrated well enough, or whatever the reason is. Maybe they're just not quite like us.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How, I mean, not much changes in history. You decide, well, these people are coming into my land, taking over, therefore I must cast them out. It's the Pharaoh of the Egypt, new Pharaoh that doesn't know Joseph, doesn't know his descendants, and has decided, you know what, I'm taking this land back. Even though the Hebrews at the time, they're not causing any destruction. The Israelites not causing any issues, but it's like you said, it's more of the fear. And Josephus actually says, or he suggests that he thinks Pharaoh might have heard of a prophecy that a Hebrew would take over Egypt and destroy the hierarchy of Egypt, whether that's a prophecy that was already fulfilled with Joseph or something to come. But this has struck fear in the heart of Pharaoh, and he was more, well, that's not going to happen. The Israelites and the Hebrews shouldn't really be here. We need to, and it's not that let's just chop them off, let's just kick them out, let's do this. He said, what we'll do is we'll stop the progression of the Israelites and the Hebrews. We'll make sure that if they have a boy, well, let's kill all the new boys so that they can't progress with their generations and generations. The women will be fine. They can't, they can integrate, but the boys, and we'll just stop it at the source there because we don't have the power to kick them all out. There's thousands and thousands of them.
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, I wanted to talk about the punishment, Clive, before we go too far. In verses 11, 12, 13, 14, the text tells us the type of punishment, the type of affliction that the Pharaoh dreams up that he wants to cast on the people. And this word called rigour is used multiple times. It tells us at the end of 14, they would make their lives bitter with hard bondage, with mortar and in bricks. So they're going to have to build everything. In bondage, in slavery, they will have to build things. And in all their service wherein they made their serve was with rigour. So I looked up because rigour now means if you do something rigorously, you're doing it in a really conscious way. You're working hard and you want to get, you're pushing something. You want it to be done and you want it to be done well. So I had a look at rigour, and rigour back in the 1600s, when this King James version was put together, actually more means severity and crushing. The way they would with rigour actually means with a crushing mentality, to crush them as they tried to move about. This is a more of a management method as opposed to today. Rigour means that you yourself would work rigorously. They would treat them in a crushing manner, crush their spirits, crush their souls, push them constantly. And so this is how hard the Pharaoh wanted to deal with them. So then, Clive, the next thing is the heroes of the next part is the heroes of the book of Exodus in my mind. Like Rebecca, like Tamar, Eve. These female characters in the Old Testament are strong and are purposeful. And so we now learn about the next most famous purposeful females who really are in my mind, are the heroes of this whole experience. And so I'll read it out. The king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives and said, which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, so they are Hebrews, when they bring forth Hebrew children, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. So this is a law that is practiced as legislation, much like in the time of what King Herod wanted to do. This is a similarity here with Moses. So what happens? So Shiphrah and Puah come together and they discuss what is it that we are going to do. We can't, in the fear and sight of our God, we cannot just become murderers. We can't just kill all males that are born. I don't know what we will do, but we can't do that. So the 17 fast forwards time because now children are being born and children are growing up, and there must be so many of them that Pharaoh realizes that his legislation to kill all men didn't actually go through, because we get this text here in 17. But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the children alive. And so the Pharaoh realizes, the king of Egypt realizes this, and he says, why have you done this thing and have saved the men, children alive? And so then there's a conversation with them. And you must have think that Shiphrah and Puah would be like, that's it, we're going to get killed. We've tried our hardest here. We've let all these men grow. The Israelites are growing strong. These nation of these Jewish people are really growing hard. So they might think that they're going to die. But we then get verse 20. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. So what is the result for Shiphrah and Puah? The result of following the Lord's direction and not being murderous savages and killing all the men? Well, for some reason, the text is totally unclear, but for some reason, the Pharaoh decides, God has influenced Pharaoh to some degree, where they then are made houses, which means they get to not be slaves anymore, and they get to have their own lineage. They live in their own properties with their own families. And so they are discharged from having to be these slave midwives. So this story, which can be quite quickly skipped, is a real blessing of more of these female characters, Clive, in the Old Testament that are really, really strong. So then Pharaoh goes, the king, I'm skipping between the term king and Pharaoh because that's certainly what the text does, but then Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born, cast him into the river, every daughter ye shall save alive. So he says, I can't trust the Hebrews to kill Hebrews anymore. I now need to go back to my foreign policy, and I need to get all my own people on side, and I need to say that if you see a Hebrew boy, kill him. You're an Egyptian. You're commanded to turn on your fellow people. If you can spot that they are not of you, they are different. Perhaps they've been circumcised. Perhaps they're hanging out with people that don't look like you. You will find them and you will essentially drown them all. That is my new foreign policy. And so this is what is then running through the land. And this is the start of the story of Moses.
And so now we get to this woman who conceives and bears a son. And what's interesting here is she tries to keep him hidden because, I mean, there must be a certain age group where Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, has said this certain age group, obviously that's not the case because she's tried to hide him for as long as she can. It says in verse 2 of chapter 2, and the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. So she tried to hide him as long as she possibly can. But then it just wasn't feasible to do so. And in verse 3, and when she could no longer hide him, she took him an ark of bulrushes and dabbed it with slime and with pitch and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. So she's created this basket for this child, and she's able to lay him in it and send him up the creek in the hopes and prayers that something would happen in the distance. Which the interesting thing here is, it's described as an ark, like a saving device, like the same ark that Noah did. It is the same original writing of that original ark. So it is more of a saving device, something that's going to save the people and bring a new beginning.
Yeah, I like that idea because the river that she puts him in is the same river where the Pharaoh says, throw the men in here. Any boys, any males that are born, chuck them in the river. The river is going to swallow them up. The river is going to drown them. And then we will eventually be rid of these Israelites from our land. And so this yet unknown woman in the text, who is a Levite, important later, she is a Levite, and so therefore Moses is a Levite. But it is important to know that that Moses, who is going to bring hope and is going to bring life, starts his journey in the river of death, and she is floating him away in a river that has murdered so many. But now Moses in there, hopefully he can bring life to a place where there is consistent death around them.
So what's great about this is Moses' sister watches all this happen. She keeps an eye on it and makes sure everything goes well. And it comes to where Pharaoh is, and where Pharaoh lives. And Pharaoh's daughter is there, and she finds this basket. And so she says, so Pharaoh's daughter came in to wash herself at the river. This is verse 5, and others came with her. And she found this basket. So in verse 6, when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. So she recognized that this isn't something that, well, obviously it's a weird thing to happen, of course. But for it to be a Hebrews child, this isn't, like you said, this is supposed to be drowned. But she had compassion on the child, and she wanted to keep the child. So really cool here. So now, so the child will be Moses, but the sister comes to Pharaoh's daughter and says, well, if it's a Hebrew child, why don't you get it raised by a Hebrew? And they can wean it, they can bear it, and then you can take it back and it will become your son. And she said, okay, well, go fetch this Hebrew then. She said, in verse 8, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go, and the maid went and called the child's mother. So now she's gone, okay, I'll find a Hebrew. She calls a Hebrew, which not happens to be, but it was planned all along, Pharaoh's mother. Moses' mother, to come and raise Moses. And what's funny, Daniel, is in verse 9 here, and Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. How great would it have been if someone said to you, I'll pay you to raise your own child? That's essentially what's happened. She doesn't know, but obviously Moses' mother knows. And, so not only does she get to raise a child, but now she's got this job, and her job is to raise the child that she's always wanted to. So this situation now, the Lord has blessed this family because something major will come about for Moses. And, I was really thinking about Moses and the importance of Moses. And I was thinking, how great is Moses' story? Like, Moses turns out to be one of the greatest, so much so that he doesn't even taste death. But then I was thinking, well, I mean, I was sort of on the same line as Abraham, because Abraham was amazing. Then I'm like Jacob, and I was like, well, I mean, I guess everyone in the Bible that it speaks of are really important. But not only Moses important, later on we'll talk about how important his wife was as well. So there's so much to Moses' story that just builds on amazing, then this happens and this happens.
Well, that's right. And the thing with Moses' story is, which again is, it's all female characters that create the story of Moses. It's his sister Bethia. She's the one. It's Pharaoh's daughter. She's also the one. It's the mum. She's also the one. These females are constantly creating the scene, constantly working, pulling the strings in the background for these miraculous stories to exist. And often it can just be the story of Moses, but there's, like as you've mentioned, there's so much more to it. There's so many layers to this. If you can just peel back the first couple that you might already know about and just look at the text and really see it for what it is.
Well, even just his name. So she decides to call him Moses, because in the Hebrew word, Moses means to draw out. she drew him out. She's calling him after a Hebrew word, but the Egyptian word is to beget a child. So it's like a two-part name there. She's begat this new child, and she's drawn him out of this river, Egyptian way and in the Hebrew way. And it really skips forward now his life, which it would just be fascinating to know what his life was. And the Prince of Egypt movie doesn't really do it justice. But in verse 11 now, this is where Moses really kicks off. So Moses has been raised by Egyptians. He's been raised as royalty. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. So now he's singing, and he knows that he is of Hebrew descent, but he is raised in Egyptian way. But he's seen his brethren, he's seen the burdens that they're bearing. And he spied on Egyptians smiting in Hebrew one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man, so he's obviously knows this situation, something terrible is happening here. A man is being beaten for something that obviously he can't control. Now Moses checks around, makes sure there's no one else around. Then he slays this Egyptian because of the beating that he's put upon this Hebrew man. And this is really where Moses' story fully starts. Now he's done something so wicked in the eyes of the Pharaoh that he can no longer be there. Now he needs to escape. He's part of these men that are worth nothing to Pharaoh. And so now he's gone, well, I need to get out of here. I need to escape because what I've done, it's an unforgivable crime.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And it's this conscience that he has grown. And so obviously you talked about his upbringing. He is of the uppers. He is clearly of the upper echelons, but he is still specifically, he knows he's a Levite. He knows he is part of this Hebrew nation. And so he's clearly always looking out for his people. Maybe he talks to Pharaoh about it, but he does enough that at one stage he absolutely gets tipped over the edge. Now, when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat by a well. Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came, drew water, and filled the troughs to water their father's flocks. So what have I written here, Clive? I've got a note here that I've written. Moses looks... okay. I've wrote here for some reason, Moses looks and dresses like an Egyptian. So that is because in 19, and they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. So this is Moses, his story. He helps these 7 daughters, and then the daughters go back and report that an Egyptian has helped them. So Moses has, whether he has an identity crisis or I don't know what he's saying, but he must look like a Hebrew, but my assumption in my little text here was he must dress like an Egyptian. So therefore, maybe they've recognized that he's an Egyptian. And so this is where we see him with Zipporah. And he said unto his daughters, where is he? This is the 7 daughters talking to their father. And why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. She bare him a son, so we get a son here called Gershom, and he's essentially a stranger. That's okay. And now we go into 23. And it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of bondage, and God heard their groaning, remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. So now we have the original Pharaoh, the original king who brought in this anti-foreigners, I'll call it, policy. He dies, and so the people are celebrating, and they're praying to God, they're crying to him, saying, free us from this bondage. The guy who created this legislation is gone. Surely you're going to help us. Surely you're not going to forget about us. Surely you're going to free us from being from this rigorous work. Um, and so God hears them. And now we see Moses take up his prophetic call. Moses goes from being your regular Joe, ex-murderer, if you would. He receives his call, and all is well. And now we hear the story of of Moses, and the burning bush. After he is put in the river, he is saved. He grows up an Egyptian, kills through oppression, leaves, gets married, has a family, and now he must return back to Egypt to free the people.
And don't forget, he meets Zipporah at a well, much as Isaac met his wife at a well, Jacob met his wife at a well. So there's a lot of similarities with
There's a
his
lot of
ancestors.
wells.
A lot
Wells,
of wells.
wells are everywhere. Well is the way. Well is the place to meet people.
That's right.
Online
Yeah,
dating back then. Wells.
wells. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Are you
sure.
going to the wells? Already went to the wells yesterday. I didn't get anyone.
Yeah. We're all gonna go meet at the wells.
Yeah. I'm going to the well to see if I can get a date. Hopefully they don't have so many camels.
All right, so now we're getting into Exodus 3. And Exodus 3 is a very, very important chapter in the history of, like you said, something's going to happen to Moses. So now Moses, he's feeding his flocks, and he came to a mountain of God, and an angel appeared, it says the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked and beheld the bush burning with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Now, this, Daniel, when we talked about last year in the Doctrine and Covenants, where Joseph sees a vision, and it's very, very similar. One of the visions that you explained was that the light was so strong that Joseph had described it as fire, and what he crossed it out and said light.
1832, 1834, perhaps. He wrote the word fire and then put a line through it and wrote light.
So it's the exact same situation here. I mean, Moses doesn't have the opportunity to say, well, what kind of other light is this? He's gone, well, this bush is on fire. It's absolutely consumed of fire, but I'm looking at it now and it's not burning. So there's something special about this. He's in this transfiguration without really understanding it. And the Lord, in verse 4, when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called unto him at the midst of the bush and said unto him, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. So Moses is confused. He's looked around and the Lord spoke to him and said, I am the one speaking to you. That's why you can see it now. And then he explains to him, take off your shoes. This is holy ground.
Clive, do you think that this, I'm going to draw some bows here, but essentially, this is a mountaintop. This is a temple. This is the place of a temple, that Moses is on. Where specifically the Lord says you're on holy ground. You got to take your shoes off. You got to show respect. Clearly, this is also a teaching moment for Moses. Moses hasn't been in any temples. Moses, what religious upbringing he has, we don't really know about. Maybe some traditional, but we later learned that he doesn't even circumcise his son, Gershon. So, not sure about how religious he is here, but the Lord is really teaching Moses. We're here. I'm here. Take your shoes off. Listen up.
Yeah, well, exactly like you said before, though, he was raised in this high Pharaoh, and Pharaoh isn't a God-fearing man. He's gone, let's kill a bunch of children.
Yeah.
But now this is really interesting, and this is, we talked about last week or maybe the week before, where the start of where the Lord speaks to people and he explains who he is. So he says, moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So now he's explained that I am the God of these people, because these specific people, because these are the ones that I gave the promise to, that their posterity would be for generations, bigger than the sands of the sea. So, and I have made them a promise that I will be with them. This is the priesthood line. This is the lineage of which Christ will come from. So that's why it's important that from now on, for the majority of the Old Testament, when Christ speaks to someone, he says, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Jacob. And so Moses now, well, he's truly realized what's happening. It says, and Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. now he's truly realizing and going, that's the one that I've heard of. This is the one that spoke, to the generations past
Yeah.
of the
Am I
posterity beyond
worthy
forever.
enough to be here? Like, how can I
Exactly.
be here? I've had this life. I'm no Abraham, I'm no Isaac. Um, and yeah, like how am I worthy enough to be in this presence?
Exactly. And he says, the Lord speaks a little bit here, but in verse 10, come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses goes, well, hold on a second. Who am I? This is verse 11. Who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? Like, I'm no one. I'm this guy that was raised, now I've escaped. I've got a little family. I'm no one.
Yeah, I really have a huge point, like not a huge, a huge time thinking about this, which I've thought about quite a lot in the studying up to this, Clive, like of how Moses is feeling. Like, I mean, I just said this, but how worthy is this guy? What life has he had that now he is talking to Christ. Christ is giving him a mission, and the other day he's going, but who am I to do this? I can't do this. I don't even know you. Um, what do you mean you know me? I don't know you. You know my name. You know all about me, but I really know very little about you. Um, and this is kind of like the take back moment of the Moses story. When you think about likening scriptures unto ourselves, when we're called, when something happens to us, Christ is already here knowing our names. He knows us. He knows who we are. And when we're called to take up an assignment, do we know his name? Are we aware that we are here? Or are we saying, actually, I don't even know who you are. I don't really know who I am either. Therefore, I can't really do this thing that you're asking of me. Like, it's the same as us, just in a much grander scheme, because now we have the next 10 verses, whatever it is, 5, 6 verses of Christ trying to almost convince Moses, dude, you can do this. I'm going to be with you. You're going to say this, you're going to say this, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Really, I almost had this idea that Christ was like, Moses, you're doing this, even if I have to drag you kicking and screaming, like you are going to fulfill the measure of your creation. Like you are one of the noble and great ones that Joseph Fielding Smith saw. Like or Joseph F. Smith saw. This is you. This is your calling. And I found this part really quite fascinating.
And going off that same line, yes, the Lord's called you, but how do I prove to the people that I've been called? I think about that when Brigham Young was called to be prophet, and no one really, there was sort of a debate about who should be the next prophet. But when Brigham Young spoke, the people saw that he spoke like Joseph Smith, and he had the sort of whistle that Joseph Smith had when he was speaking to the people, and that's sort of how it settled on them, that they understood that he was the one called of God. And I don't know if that's like a Mormon myth story, if that's an actual story or not, but
no, there is definitely recordings of that happening.
yeah, a few. Okay, so Moses said the same thing. Well,
you got it. We can put that in the episode.
Yeah, good. Well, so Moses says, all right, well, okay, let's say that this is true. How do I go and convince people and say, hey, come with me? I swear God's told me to come with you. He says, the Lord says unto Moses, I am that I am. Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. This is a sacred word for God. This is Yahweh. This is Jehovah. This is the one true God. In fact, when I was trying to find it in Josephus, he said that this word that Moses speaks is such a sacred word that it can't be written down.
The verse that I really like is the promise at the end of chapter 3, verse 22. This is about Israel. This is a prophecy, I guess, that Israel will inherit all the good things that Egypt has. Every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourneth in her house, jewels of silver, jewels of gold, raiment, and ye shall put them upon your daughters, and upon your sons, and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians. This is really a foretelling of what is going to happen. It's the only other really important part. But there's a lot in there of that chapter 3.
There is a lot in there, and it's definitely worth a read. There's a lot of things in the Bible where you sort of like, I could probably skip over who begat who and who begat who, but chapter 3 is very, very important to read. But due to time, I just want to skip forward to chapter 4. So
Yep.
now Moses says, okay, what if they still don't believe me? What can I do to show them? And the Lord says, well, what's that in your hand? And he says, it's a rod. And he said, cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. This isn't a stick that looks like it might be a bit wiggly. This is the rod that he has in his hand that he has had for a long time now. He's cast on the ground, and it turned into a serpent. This rod, so there's only a few things that I've tried to compare it to. Moses' rod, the Liahona, the Urim and Thummim, and there isn't really much more things that must have been created somewhere else. These aren't physical things that were created on the earth by a man. These are things that were created by the Lord and given for a purpose. You think about the Liahona. It's not a compass that points left, right, or north, south, east, and west. This is something that what you
Has
need
messaging.
will point the way. Yeah, exactly. With different writing every time. Now we've got this rod that Moses has had. Now there's ancient tradition that suggests that the rod was some kind of relic passed down through the patriarchs, symbolizing the transfer of authority from Adam. But there's nowhere really that I've found that says Adam had this and Abraham had this and Moses had this and Noah had this or anything like that. So I'm not really sure where it came from. Do you have any other ideas where the rod might come from?
I've got no idea. In fact, I didn't even think about it till you're mentioning of it now. And I'm also thinking about the garments as well. Where did they end up? Because everything at the end of Joseph, when Joseph dies, there is no, we don't have that direct lineage of this person to this person to this person. Like I guess the patriarchal line. Moses is really starting this patriarchal line from fresh. He's not getting anything from anyone. So, yeah, I absolutely have no clue, but it's a great topic.
It is a great topic. It'd be something interesting if somebody knows a lot more about. And we're going to talk about the rod more later, where blood comes from a stone and splits the Red Sea. But for now, let's keep talking about it. So the Lord says, grab the tail of the snake, and it'll turn back into a rod. And he does it, and it turns back into his rod. And now he says, and if they don't believe you, we'll show them more examples. There's 6 and 7. And the Lord said, furthermore unto him, put thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. And put his hand into his bosom again, and poked it out of his bosom. And behold, it had turned again as his other flesh. Now, leprosy, I don't know what we can compare it to now, but leprosy of those days was the worst, incurable, extremely painful, and something that everyone tried to avoid. So this is showing that even the most terrible of diseases, the Lord is able to cure out of nothing, bring it out of nothing and cure it out of nothing. So you've got this rod turning it to a snake. You got the leprosy. And he says, look, even if they don't believe you after that, go and take a cup and go to the river, scoop up some water, and then pour it down. And as it comes down, hits the ground, it'll be blood. These are examples, perfect examples of things that only the Lord can do, that you can show to these people. And you can say, I am of the Lord. The Lord has blessed me. The Lord has ordained me to come and to free these people.
And importantly as well, Clive, these are not things that Pharaoh's gods can claim to do. They're not that. They're not the same as what the Egyptian gods are claiming to do. They're different, and they're physical things that the Lord is teaching Moses. I will show you how to do stuff that their priests can't do, or don't know how to do, or can't even imagine that a God can do. We're going to blow them so far out the water with this. We need to put this down as an exclamation point, that they will really, really understand who I am and what authority you are working under. Like, it's a huge task to free these people, and basically Moses needs to be really on his game.
If we look at verse 21, the Lord says unto Moses, When thou goest to return unto Egypt, see that thou do all the wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thy hand. But, and this is important, but I will harden his heart that he shall not let the people go. Now it's important because it shows here that the Bible is not fully accurate, and we need to understand that Joseph Smith's translation is for our benefit. So if you look at Joseph Smith's translation of 21c, and I will prosper thee, but Pharaoh will harden his heart, and he will not let his people go. The Lord isn't saying to Moses, do all these things, but I'm going to still harden Pharaoh's heart because
Yeah,
I want to see how far you'll go.
yeah, we're just going to see how far we can push him.
Exactly.
And I do wonder in the original text, these people, these sages, these people who are putting this work together are going, they're going, is this really right? Is this what it says in the text? Are we really going to put this into this Bible?
Well, even still with the thing you were talking about, how Moses hasn't circumcised his son. The Joseph Smith translation is important to help us understand what they were talking about. In fact, the Joseph Smith translation also makes it quite confusing. But if we look at the Joseph Smith translation of 24 to 27, the Lord appeared and was angry with Moses. He was angry with Moses that he hadn't circumcised his son. And he was saying, if he doesn't circumcise his son, he will kill Moses. And so this is when Zipporah, very important lady, she's the one that took the sharp stone, circumcised his son, and cast a stone at his feet. Surely thou art a bloody husband unto me. And the Lord appeared unto Moses and let him go, because Zipporah, his wife, circumcised the child. So the Lord had taken Moses and restrained him in a way, saying, you haven't done this thing that I've asked you to. And if it doesn't happen, I will kill you. And Zipporah's gone, I'll do it. I'll circumcise our son.
Yeah, well, in this case, the point with Zipporah is she needs Moses to be covenant keeping. She needs their family to be covenant keeping. And when she says, a bloody husband thou art, that is it denoting that the family is now in a covenant keeping way. And so Moses needs to run a house of order, and he needs to run a house of covenant keeping. They must be on the covenant path. And so what Zipporah has done is yet again another female in the Old Testament is coming to save the day. And this is a really, really important point, because Moses cannot go on. He cannot be a patriarch if he can't even keep covenants. So this is an important point where his wife is able to back him and to keep them going within the faith.
All right. So in verse 10, if we just go back, because then I'll explain what's going to happen now. Moses explains to the Lord that if he was to go and he would say these things, well, I'm slow of speech, I'm not eloquent in speaking, I'm slow of tongue. And now if we look over here at the end here, Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of Israel, and Aaron spoke all the words which the Lord had spoken unto Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. So Aaron's now this spokesman for Moses, and he's doing all of these things to show the people what the Lord has said to Moses.
Yeah, imagine they're going up doing meetings, they're gathering people together, they're starting to educate people, they're showing them that the priesthood lineage is back, and really start gathering the people up and trying to get them to be covenant keeping people as well.
We'll just quickly go through 5 and 6. And then the Lord goes to Pharaoh, and he explains to the Pharaoh that you must let your people go, lest the fear of God comes upon you. And Pharaoh in verse 2, who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go. Who are you? Who are you? Who are your God? That's got nothing to do with me. It hasn't affected me. Therefore, it's not something that I need to worry about. In fact, you coming to me and begging me to let your people go and now threatening me with your Lord, I'm going to make your people's work even harder. They are, like Daniel explained earlier, they're servants now, and they've been told to make all these things. Well, you know what? I'm going to take the straw away that we bring to your people, and I'm going to make them do the same job, but now they've got to find their own straw. In verse 6 and 7, and Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their offering, saying, ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick, as heretofore let them go and gather straw for themselves. And in verse 11, go ye, get your straw where you can find it, yet aught not of your work shall be diminished. You need to do the same amount of work with less things that we've given you. You've got to organize it yourself. Now, they've been told to make these houses, make these things for Pharaoh. I mean, the pyramids are already built by then, so it isn't that. But these mud bricks require straw and bindings, and if without the straw, they start to crack, and they've got to redo everything. So it's a really important element. And so for Pharaoh to say you need to do the exact same work with less provisions, now it's just going to become more upon them. And they say to Moses, "Why are you doing this to us? How has the Lord told you to do these things, but now Pharaoh's making work much harder for us? This really doesn't seem fair." So now, in chapter 6, it says in verse 2 and 3, "And God spake unto Moses, said, I am the Lord, and I appeared unto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob by the name of God Almighty, but my name Jehovah was I not known to them." So you need to explain more to them who they are. You need to go to them and tell them who it is that sent you. And then there's a bunch of I wills, right? There are these things called the 7 I wills. And that's in 6. "Wherefore saith the children of Israel, I am the Lord, I will bring you out of from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will rid you of the bondages. I will redeem you with the stretched out arm of the judgments. I will take you to me from my people. I am the Lord. I will bring you unto the land, and I will give it to you as an inheritance, for I am the Lord." So the Lord's truly speaking to them and really explaining to them, this isn't just, I'm going to try and do this. I will do these. The 7 I wills. I will do these things for you. I am the Lord. And Moses is trying to explain this through Aaron of the things to come. And it sort of ends here with Moses blessing the people and explaining to the people that, times are hard, but I am going to free you from the burdens of the Egyptians.
Well, Clive, thanks for that. What a great topic. What a great episode. A great story to talk through and to understand so many layers of this Moses origin story. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of You Could Hide to Kolob podcast. Catch us on Facebook, Instagram, catch us on YouTube, subscribe to us there. And we'll be back next week for Exodus 7 to Exodus 13. And we'll continue with this Moses story. Thank you.